Attention. Please rise for the presenting of the colors. Color Guard forward. Please join me in the pledge to the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join in the pledge to the Texas flag. On my honor, Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Please remain standing and also remove any ball caps for the singing of the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Will you please pray with me, please? God, we just want to thank you for this day, and for the many blessings that you have given to each of us and to this great nation. God, please let every veteran of our nation feel truly and appropriately appreciated and honored, not just on this day, but every day of the year, Father. God, you know the difficulties that many of our veterans have when they return from battle or a stressful service. You know they can feel isolated and alone, as there are a few of us around that fully understand their experiences. I ask that you put people in their path that do understand what they're going through, or those that strive hard to understand what our veterans are feeling. Most of us will never know or have their experiences, but please help us to listen and to help in any way that we possibly can. God, you know how deep our warriors' wounds go. You know the loss and the memories that many of our veterans continue to carry with them. Please bring healing to those veterans who are still hurting. Please grant love, patience, kindness, and understanding to those around them. God, we honor our veterans, and we thank them so much for their sacrifice. Please reward our veterans 100-fold for all the service and the sacrifice they have made. Bless them far beyond all of their expectations. Bless them with peace and happiness, and reward them richly for all they have given. Father, we lift up our veterans into your arms. And today we pray the prayer that you taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
You may be seated.
On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the war that changed the world ended. Millions and thousands upon thousands of lives were forever changed. Many of their stories, many of their feelings were not recorded. But many left us letters, pictures, and poems to express what they saw and what they felt. John McCree was one of those. He wrote the poem that I'm about to read after the death of one of his friends. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely fly, scarce heard amongst the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now lie in Flanders field. Take up our quarrel with our foe. To you from falling hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Guard post the colors.
Good morning. We appreciate each one of you being here today. I'm Bob Tillman. I'm president of the Saxon Historical Society. We'd like to welcome you to our area to this particular event. As I mentioned a little bit ago, we had to make a couple of changes. We were going to have this over in our museum area there in the fenced area. It looks nice and pretty, but it was a little chilly. So I didn't think you guys would want to sit up there. It's 35 degrees when we got here this morning. But anyway, we appreciate each one of you coming and being part of this. I want to thank I can turn that instead. Okay. We'd like to thank Jonathan Bryan with the Trail Life USA Texas 3702 group that brought posted the colors for us. We also want to thank Bailey. Where's Bailey? Bailey? There she is. She's sung for us for several years. We appreciate that very much. Wonderful. And Paul Watkins, one of our city councilmen, brought our invocation. Tricia Lindsay, one of our members, read the Flanders Field poem. Anyway, we'd like to welcome each one of you here. We try to have a nice, appropriate event. We like to have it fun for you guys. We want you to have a good time while you're here. We want to be appreciative and thankful, but yet we don't want to be stoic and stiff and not have an enjoyable time. When this is over, we would like to invite you to come to our museum, just as walking distance across the way. There's a little puddle of water there. We're going to try to cover that up, but I think we can walk around it maybe, get from here to there. We've got some military drones set up, jeeps, really nice displays of military memorabilia and all sorts of things inside the museum we'd like you guys to come and see. And that'll be as soon as this is over. We have several things coming up. Where's our wonderful mayor, Mr. Mike Felix? We'd like to introduce him. He has a proclamation from the city. I worked with cities all over the area for years. I've never worked in a city that was more cooperative and supportive of a group than our city right here. This gentleman is one of the reasons it's that way. I think he heads it up. Mike, I appreciate my mayor. We appreciate your reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Oh, you're welcome. And I just want to say that the Historical Society works so hard to promote the history of Saxe, and the wall last year was an amazing event for our city. And again, today's event's an amazing city. So if you have a chance and you're here and you want to be a part of the Historical Society, get in there and become part of it. Get in there and they do a great job in promoting our history, and that's something that we never want to forget. So, and again, we still have a small enough town where if we have a cold issue here, we can come over here to Mr. Charles Smith's place and we can have our service here. So I want to thank Mr. Charles Smith for allowing us to come over here today too. And at this time I'll read the proclamation. Whereas there is no greater honor than those who are and who have served the country in being in the military. And whereas remember all servicemen and women along with their families who give their lives while serving in the military. Whereas these contributions and sacrifices have been vital in maintaining the freedoms of our life enjoyed by the people of the United States and around the world. Whereas on Veterans Day, we salute all who have served and rendered the highest service any American can offer. Whereas Veterans Day is celebrated and observed yearly around the world on November 11th, I therefore, Mike Felix, Mayor of the City of Sac City, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2018, in observance of Veterans Day as a day of recognizing the contributions of all of our service members that have made and to cause of peace and freedom around the world. Again, God bless each of you for being here. Thank each of you for your service, and may God bless our city and everyone here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Felix, we appreciate that. We have a special event coming up right now that I haven't seen anything like this before. Where's Mr. Bob Sewell? He is going to make a presentation. He'll tell a little bit more about it. This is about the 5th year we've done this here, or 6th?
5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere in there.
It's more than 4. It's less than 20. But it's somewhere around 5 or 6. But it's a very special event. It's made to a family that has a recently deceased veteran in their family, and this is to honor that group, honor that person. Bob, will you make that presentation?
At this time, I'd like to have the members of the Harold Smith family join me up here. Come on. We can do both sides. Now this little something I've been doing for years for my family, and now I've graduated out to my other family here at the Sac City Historical Society. And it's a coin presentation and a letter honoring a veteran who's passed. I'll read the letter. To the family of Harold Francis Smith. Want to do something for you to honor Harold's military service and passing. My military service is very special to me, and following is a little history of what I've been doing to honor my fellow veterans and their families. A couple years back, my son gave me some coins that represented different points in my service time. When I went to the manufacturer's website, I found a coin that represented the folded burial flag to the next of kin at the burial site of a deceased veteran. I've been giving these coins to friends and family whenever they lose a veteran, a family member, ever since. Harold served his country for 30 years and was a man of many accomplishments and achievements. He was very instrumental in the engineering, research, and development of the unmanned weapon systems like the drones on display over here at the Society today. Today they are saving lives all over the world, not only as a weapon, but in surveillance, search and rescue missions, and delivering life-saving supplies in disaster areas. Today I would like to honor Harold's military service and passing by presenting the family with one of these coins. The front of the coin again shows the folded burial flag being presented to the next of kin. On the reverse, I've had Harold's name, year of birth, year of passing engraved. Also, on this side, is an inscription that reads as follows: "For service to a grateful nation. Once a U.S. flag is lifted from the casket, it is tilted down in front of the casket to block the view. The flag is then held up for everyone to see, and taps is then played softly in the distance. This is referred to as presenting the colors. Tradition holds that at this time, the fighting spirit of the veteran then enters the flag. Once the flag is folded, both the flag and the veteran are formally retired forever. At this time, I'd like to express my deepest sympathies and that Harold's passing, and without further ado, I'll throw in final sword.
Thank you.
And I need to turn it over. And there's the inscription here, just grab it. My honor.
Thank you so much.
We can all kind of get together so that they can get a picture. Go ahead, Donna, did you
We've
want to
got
say
it
something?
now. No.
I'm waiting for y'all to say red, red. Really, I'm gonna let the newspaper get one too, so I'll move out of the way.
Thank you, Sandy.
We've got the red light here, we have the red lights right.
This came as kind of a special time for us last year. Mr. Smith, Colonel Smith, I believe, spoke at our program here about 2 years ago?
3 years.
3 years ago. And for those of you who don't know, just a brief thing here, coming with, he was an aeronautical engineer, and he, during the military time in the 60s, he developed some of the drones that you'll see across the way. He actually had a collection of those. And he brought one and told us a little bit about it. And he was killed on his way home from work after making all the service years and everything. It was almost exactly this time, I believe, last year, just right before one of our meetings. So anyway, that was, I think that's a wonderful time, wonderful thing to do to honor some of our family here in this area. Another thing that we've done, and where is Mr. Ed Smith? Ben Brown, sorry about that, getting Browns and Smiths mixed up there. We have our Historical Society. We found out that the Department of Defense offers a program to honor veterans who served our country from 1955 to 1975. Those of us that are old enough to remember these years, they weren't very good. I remember growing up in school, I was watching the news every evening. Walter Cronkite, he'd come on, he'd tell about, you know, all the devastation in Vietnam. And my father was in World War II, and when he came home, I wasn't around, obviously, but he was interred over his trace here. Those guys were honored, and almost every service member from the Vietnam era back were honored. They had parades, they had all sorts of things. The Vietnam era, these guys here, they weren't. They were spit on. It was a terrible time. And the Vietnam Wall, as our mayor mentioned, we had the moving wall come here last year. I've never seen anything like that. We had over 8,000. We counted 8,000. We think we're talking like 10,000 people came through that. It was the most solemn occasion I've ever seen here in the city like that. It was a blessing. It was a good time that we could maybe honor the people that for a long time weren't honored and weren't appreciated. Because I'm sure the guys and gals went over there didn't go over there just because they wanted to. They were asked to do that and told to do that by their country, and we appreciate that. But anyway, as part of the programs, Ed found out that we could become what is called a commemorative partner with the Department of Defense in honoring veterans who served our country during those years. So he applied for it. We thought it was a good idea. And I believe we've had about 50 so far that we've honored. We've had 2 ceremonies here. We did one at the down in Seagoville at an alumni association. And this will be the recap. I know some of the gentlemen could not come today because of the weather and distance and what have you. But Ed, would you like to come on and you can be more definitive on what you're talking about to a lot of these people. We do want to make sure that we get each one of you folks a good picture. We've got some people taking pictures. We will have video, and one of the ladies asked about this. The pictures are free. We'll post them on our website. They're high resolution images. You can have them. The video will be available too. So if anything you'd like, and a group shot at the end, we want to make sure we get a group shot of all the service people. That actually goes to Washington as a Department of Archives. Whatever you can explain on that.
Good morning, y'all. In May of 2012, the United States Congress passed a public law, and it authorized the formation of the United States of America Vietnam War Commemoration. And the whole purpose of it was to recognize the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. They now call it a war. When I grew up and was involved in it, it was a conflict. But now it's recognized as a war. The other part of it, they put it under the auspices of the Department of Defense to manage this program, to manage this commemoration. One of the other parts of this public law was that the Department of Defense was to recognize all military veterans that honorably served between the years of 1955 and 1975. And that's the years that they recognized as the years of the Vietnam War era. And during this thing, they broke it into 5 different stages, and I'll only go over a couple of the stages because most of it's not going to pertain to most folks in here. The first thing that the commemoration has to do is recognize all Vietnam War veterans. And those are the veterans that served in country in the Republic of South Vietnam or served in that combat theater. They're all considered Vietnam War veterans. And in addition, if that veteran is no longer living and is deceased, we have to recognize their family. There's a special certificate for that. We're also to recognize the family members of those still missing in action in Vietnam. And they have to be listed on the wall in Washington, D.C. for that recognition. Then the next category is to recognize all military veterans that served any place in the U.S. military forces, any branch of the military during that period, 55 to 75, and to recognize them also, only if they're living, is one of the stipulations. And then they have 3 other phases of this that recognizes veterans organizations like the USO and those scientists that were involved in developing the technology that was used during the Vietnam War, and the final category is the allies that were in Vietnam at the same time. And so that's the whole purpose of the Vietnam commemoration. Now, the Department of Defense doesn't have the assets to go and recognize, they estimate 7 to 9 million veterans. So what they've done is they developed a program called the Partnership. And organizations, veterans organizations, service organizations, and the like can become in partnership with the Department of Defense to recognize all these veterans and everything else that's required of the program. And the Sachse Historical Society did that a couple of years ago. We became a partner. We went into partnership with the Department of Defense, and I coordinate the program for the Sachse Historical Society where we recognize veterans. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to recognize the veterans. We have certificates up on the table. Now, the Department of Defense, they don't really have any written guidelines for this program. It kind of amazed me when I first got involved in it. All we're required to do is present you with the Vietnam pin and a proclamation from the President of the United States recognizing your service. And then everything else is left up to the partnership organization. Since I spent a lot of time in the military, like 42 years and so many months, and I've got a lot of history in the military. We went a little bit farther, and we actually present a certificate. The pin's nice, and the proclamation from the president is nice, but I think that you need a certificate that actually recognizes your service, and that's what we do here. So we actually present a certificate to you also. In a moment here, we'll call forward several of the veterans that we've already know that are supposed to be here. If you're a veteran that served during that period of time and you're present in the audience and you want to be recognized, we'll gladly recognize you. I'll have to prepare a certificate for you and give you all the rest of the information. We'll send it to you, or you can wait until March. March is when we'll do this again. We're required by the Department of Defense to do this ceremony twice a year. This is our third ceremony this year. So if you're a veteran that's in the audience and I haven't talked to you and you want to come forward, we'll recognize you. I have enough pens, unless about 20 of y'all come up, then it's going to be difficult for me. Okay? So after I present these certificates, if you're there, I'll call you on if you want to come forward, and we'll recognize your service, gladly recognize your service. Okay? All right. The United States of America Vietnam War Commemoration, in partnership with the Saxe Historical Society of Saxe, Texas, will now recognize the service, valor, and sacrifice of the following veterans. James C. Anthony, would you please come forward? All right, Aviation Storekeeper, 3rd Class, James C. Anthony, United States Navy, Squadron VP-24-2, USS Essex, CVS-9, Mediterranean Sea, and service at Naval Air Stations, Norfolk, Virginia, Patuxent River, Maryland, and Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico. Service from October 5th, 1965 through October 3rd, 1968. We thank you for your service. Joel Bernstein, would you please come forward? Storekeeper, 2nd Class, Joel Bernstein, United States Navy, USS Savannah, South China Sea, February 1969 to December 1972. We thank you for your service. Jay Breland. Corporal Junior Jay Breland, United States Marine Corps, 1st Marine Air Wing, Da Nang, Republic of South Vietnam, December 1966 to January 1968. So we thank you. Don Bridges. Aviation Electricians Mate, 2nd Class, Don Bridges. United States Navy, USS Kearsarge, CVS 33, South China Sea and the Gulf of Tonkin. Service periods 1966, 1967, 1968. We thank you for your service. Ted Glover. Construction electrician, 3rd class, Theodore B. Glover, United States Navy. Mobile Construction Battalion 53, MCB 53, they're the CBs, we don't know much about the military. Da Nang, Republic of South Vietnam, January through August of 1968. Who's receiving this? I have the certificate for Ted Dodd. I believe his daughter's receiving it. Will you come forward? Is Ted Dodd here? Has I got him on my list? Let me have my list there.
Okay.
My list.
Is his daughter here?
Is Denny Cobb going to receive the certificate? Okay, would you come forward, please? All right. Mr. Cobb is going to receive the certificate for Sergeant Ted B. Dodd, United States Air Force Medic, Air Force Medical Service, Clark Air Force Base, Luzon, Ireland, in the Philippines, February 1971 to February 1975. Now, he just explained, it's supposed not Dodd, it's supposed to be Cobb. We'll straighten the certificate out, Ted. You know, get it back. Thank you for your service. Jerry Wayne Kelly. Specialist 4, Jerry Wayne Kelly, United States Army, U.S. Army, Alaska, Nike's Hercules Battalion, Anchorage, Alaska, 1961 to 1964. We thank you for your service. Gerald Gardner. Staff Sergeant Gerald D. Gardner, United States Army, Crew Chief UH-1 Huey, 2nd Platoon, 170th Assault Helicopter Company, called the Bikinis, Republic of South Vietnam, September 1965 to September 1968. William Womack. Sergeant William C. Womack, United States Marine Corps, Communications Chief, 1st Battalion, 12th Marines, 3rd Marine Division, Da Nang, Republic of South Vietnam, May of 1963 to May of 1967. Thank you for your service. All right, Larry Yates. Sergeant Larry Yates, U.S. Air Force Communications Service, 1971 to 1975. We thank you for your service. Is there any other veterans that would like to be recognized at this time? Oh, you're here, Sandy Baker.
Monty's here?
Monty Gage.
Yes. We should have known. Should have known you'd sneak in.
Specialist 5, Monty Reagan Gage, United States Army, dual gunner and aircraft powertrain repairman, 114th Aviation Company, the Knights of the Air, Vinh Long, South Vietnam, November 1966, November 1967. Thank you for your service. Is there any other veterans that would like to be recognized? Please come forward. Okay. If you know a veteran that served during this period of time and you'd like to have them recognized, again, we'll do this in March next year, same kind of ceremony. All I need to know is the name and all the information. You can contact us at the Historical Society or contact me after this ceremony and we'll gladly get the information from you. Charles?
Yeah, I served in the Air Force 61 through 65.
Oh yeah, you want us to do a certificate for you?
Yes, that's right. So I'll pick it up in March.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, gentlemen, for your service. And Charles, I want to thank special thanks to Charles and Loretta. Charles is the owner of this facility here, and 5 others, I think, or 6 others, and he made it available because he's always been very cooperative. Anything we need here, he's opened the chapel up for us and made sure we had a space available. Thank you very much, Charles. Appreciate it. I appreciate your service. Well, we were trying to find someone to speak today, and we had to, we looked and we looked and we looked, and we kind of had to, we were scraping the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. So we've got a gentleman over here, I'll read his bio, it's about 10 pages, but I don't want to, it was condensed to one here. He served for 31 years, active in reserve in the U.S. Marine Corps. His military service included combat tours and operations Frequent Wind in Vietnam, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, First Gulf War, and operations Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, and New Dawn in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's received 42 individual and unit citations, including 3 Bronze Star medals and the Legion of Merit. He retired out of the Pentagon as Deputy Director of International Affairs. He served 10 years as Contact Manager of Security and Sustainment for the U.S. Department of State for the embassies of consultants in Iraq and Afghanistan. Currently a private consultant for services in Iraq and Afghanistan for KBR, Cytoport Global Services, Rampart Aviation, and several Iraqi companies that support the U.S. Departments of Defense and State. His wife, Kim, and his wife, Ruthie, have a son, Chad, and a daughter, Ashley, and 4 grandchildren. They reside in Anna, where Ruthie raises horses and several donkeys. Kim has served on numerous philanthropic boards and is a regular speaker for the Student Leadership University, Young Presidents Organization, and several Fortune 100 companies. Kim's hobbies include reading, collecting antique, veteran artifacts, and martial arts. They'd be nice around him, you might think. He is co-founder of the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, the Christian Black Belt Association, and the American Black Belt Council. I met Colonel Poole at an event here a few months ago, and I was absolutely impressed with his credentials, the places he's been. I saw pictures of him with kings and princes all over the world, and people that I haven't met those folks before. But I'd like to introduce Colonel Poole. He's a wonderful gentleman. He was going to speak to us today. Thank you.
What a pleasure and an honor it is to be here with you today, and this has already been such a great blessing for me. Just what's been said and the recognition to these veterans, it just is the most moving thing. So thank you so much for having me, Bobby. Thank you for inviting me. I got to get glasses to see my notes here, so y'all bear with me for a second. I know you know, as well as everybody in here, that the safety and the future of our nation depends on these veterans that we've recognized. It depends on the young women, the men that are serving around the world today. So to always recognize and support them, it just can't be emphasized how important that is. And I want to finish talking about that. But I went into Webster's this week. I thought I just want to look up the definition of a veteran. And it said, you can check me on this, former military, a person with great experience at what they do in a company or whatever. And I thought how inadequate that is. A veteran is so much more. A veteran salutes that flag with a huge lump in their throat. They sing our national anthem and their heart quickens. Their chest swells with pride when they see anyone in uniform. That's a veteran. That's also a patriot. So our patriots are the same way. You have that same feeling when you salute our nation or you sing God Bless America, and count yourself a patriot, because if you're moved in that moment, you're much more veteran than Webster's gives the definition for. The veterans with us today, I will tell you, and you know, are the exact same character of people. They joined the military to elect to be a part of something much greater than themselves. To step forward and put everything on the line to defend this nation that we all enjoy so much. Knowing full well that somewhere during that duty could mean the ultimate sacrifice. As all of us have had friends and loved ones or neighbors have lost friends. They're on that wall that was here. They're on the memorials in Washington. They're in the National Cemetery. And so that is the kind of sacrifice that these men and women stepped up and were willing to give. You know, they're the same people that fought in the Revolution with George Washington. I mean, they're the same people that were at Valley Forge in that harshest of winters. Many froze to death overnight in guard duty. And then in those kind of conditions, they stepped out across the Delaware River and delivered the turning point victory against the mercenary Hessians that were here, hired to come over here and oppressed America, prevented from becoming an independent country. But these are the same character people that did that. They're the same character people that preserved this union in the Civil War, approximately 74 years later. You know, the official record is we lost, in those 4 years of the Civil War, we lost 620,000. 620,000 killed in action. Experts will tell you that it was probably closer to 700,000. More than all the wars since then, collectively. But that war was so important, preserving this union of our United States. And then the healing of that afterwards. And in the close of the war, in 1865, the 13th Amendment was ratified, the Bill of Rights, which emancipated, abolished slavery, the blight on our country, and erased that and freed 3 million men, women, and children that became such a vital part of our society. Same kind of people that we recognize today. So they're the same folks that climbed out of those trenches in World War I and charged across no man's land in the face of deadly fire, people dropping all around them. They're the same ones that stormed the Normandy beaches at Utah and Omaha. And if you've ever seen, you've probably seen movies of this. I've seen these movies. I was asked to speak at Normandy about 3 or 4 years ago. My wife and I went over, and I'd seen all the movies, and I thought, I better get brushed up on this. I've seen the movies, read a couple of books. I thought, I better get up. We're going to be here at the actual place, and this event was happening on Omaha Beach, on the beach itself. And I'm reading, and I heard something I've never seen before. The history book that I had was very, very detailed, but it said that the French people along the Normandy shore, the price they paid during that invasion to liberate their country and ultimately to free Europe from a worldwide would-be dictator, Adolf Hitler, they lost 20,000 citizens. 20,000 people, because the bombs fell for hours and hours and hours from the ships, from the aircraft. There were over 1,000 bombing missions run up and down that beach, and yet you would think that nothing could survive that. And it was one of the most horrific landings and horrific casualties of World War II. But it's the same men that were there. They're the same people that fought hundreds of other battles in World War II. And in the frozen mountains of Korea, just a few years later, to preserve the freedom of South Korea from communism. And then in Vietnam that we've just looked at and talked about this morning, that trudged through those rice paddies and the humidity that would take the breath right out of your lungs. They're the same folks that were in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, through the blinding snowstorm or dust storms of that assault into Kuwait to free a little country that was overtaken by a brutal dictator next door, and went back approximately 12 years later to liberate Iraq, the Iraqi people, from that same dictator, who was one of the greatest sponsors of worldwide terrorism. All of those veterans stepped up with the potential of loss of life. And you know, we know that the Bible tells us that greater love hath no man than to lay down the life for his loved ones. You can go into Arlington Cemetery and you can't have a dry eye coming out of that place. I don't. I go there almost every year to visit fellow brothers and sisters that are in there. And my wife and I are so moved, it takes a few hours to get through there. And but it's a pilgrimage that we make every year. We'll just feel like we need to. And we've got a lot of friends that meet us there that we served with over the years. But I'll tell you, a veteran is somebody that is in our history, has molded our history, has made our nation in large part what it is. But I'm going to tell you some people that are also great patriots and maybe even a greater sacrifice. And that is the families and the loved ones, the spouses, the children, the parents of the folks that go off to serve. I mean, you just cannot place. I have difficulty. I try to understand, you know, what my wife and kids have gone through and the many deployments that I've had. But I'm going to tell you, they and my friends and friends at church prayed me through those deployments. I know for a fact I wouldn't be here with you this morning were it not for their support and prayers. I mean, many of us can testify to that. And miracles on the battlefield. You know, some of the events later you can laugh about, but I remember getting evacuated out of Iraq, medevac out of Iraq, and our helicopter was shot down en route, taking me off the roof of the Iraqi hospital in Baghdad and taking me out in Balad to get on the hospital plane to go to Landstuhl, Germany. And our helicopter was shot down. I was in La La Land on morphine, and I didn't remember very much of it. But I remember we came under fire, and I had lost a dear friend in just a few months prior to that with the first shoot down in Iraq. And I didn't know that we'd been shot down. I didn't understand because you're kind of coming in and out of morphine thing. Until I got all the way to Bethesda, Maryland. I was in Landstuhl for 10 days of intensive care, and my wife flew on the hospital plane back with us to Edwards Air Force Base and then on to Bethesda for a series of surgeries. And I woke up one morning and there's a little troop of Marines that were in my room. There's a young Lance Corporal that had lost his arm, and he kind of adopted my wife and I. And my wife, in turn, had adopted all the mothers and the wives and the girlfriends of all the Marines and the sailors that were on our floor. And so they had a huge group of people in our room. Now, imagine this room. I'm the only one in there that's laying up in the bed, and I've been there for probably about 3 or 4 days by then, and I come out of my morphine stupor, and I see all these ladies in there, and they're all laughing and talking, which I think is probably what woke me up. And there's a little small group of Marines in there, you know, that are sort of walking wounded. And the Lance Corporal was holding kind of court, and he was telling stories, you know, he was enjoying his work. And he started talking about our shoot down. And I said, Brandon, who got shot down? What are you talking about? And he said, well, it was us, sir. He said, we got shot down. And I thought, wow, I thought I dreamed that. I thought that drug thing was so real. I thought it was a bad dream. And I can remember rounds hitting the plane and hitting the helicopter and it going down. And I was thinking, I was strapped in a gurney with my little bottle of water, and I thought, you know, they're just unscratched. The door gunner was just working out like a maniac. Y'all seen that happen, you know, with ground firing. And I thought I could get up and help that young man. Of course, I would have just fallen out of the helicopter. I wouldn't have been any help at all with them. But nonetheless, you know, he had a humorous way to tell it. And I remember the thing sitting down, and I thought, oh, you know, we're here finally. We finally arrived. Thank goodness I'm going to get some care. I'll get healed up. The healing will start. And then I felt the thing starting to shudder and wind up as they do and start to take off. You guys that were aviators, you know that helicopter starts shuddering. And I thought, they forgot me. They forgot to unload me. And I was so out of it, I couldn't say, wait, I got to go forward to the hospital. I can't go back to Baghdad. I'm supposed to go forward. But it was you know, a bunch of us survived through that with each other. And 52 days in the hospital later, at about 50 pounds lighter, you know, we kind of saw each other through it. And I went back out to Bethesda for months to follow. Companies just adopted people out there, wives and mothers, picked up mortgage payments and paid back bills and car payments and utility bills and things to let their loved ones stay there to help their service member, their son or their husband, you know, get through that. So when I say patriots and the sacrifice of our families and friends, it is what makes all the difference. It just makes the difference. I'll tell you, serving overseas in a combat zone without knowing you've got some loved ones behind you back home, I can't fathom that. I can't fathom that. So as you have supported, many of you here have supported veterans and seen them through tough times, and you know, when we thank our veterans for their service, we need to thank you for your service, because that is really what it boils down to. That makes the success for the veteran. I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of groups, the privilege to speak to a lot of groups, and you know what I hear a lot is people asking, you know, why I was never in the military. Oh, how can I help? What can I do? I've never been in the military service, but is there any? And I tell you, you can do that most important thing. You can be that biggest difference maker with your support and your prayers for your service member or any and all service members. When you hit your knees, just lift up all these men and women that are serving around the world, that are keeping America safe from the global war on terrorism, that are standing on the ramparts saying a 9/11 will never happen on my watch. That's just never going to happen again. So your prayers and your support are critical. I will tell you, it is one of our first lines of defense. Y'all mind if I leave this microphone? Can y'all hear me if I come out here? Is that okay? So, I'm not embellishing or overemphasizing when I say your prayers and support, I will tell you, are more powerful. You seen our M1 Abrams tanks? You seen those things? M1A3 now Abrams tanks? They're amazing. They will run 70 miles an hour, fires a 120 millimeter shell that travels a mile a second. A mile a second. With better than 98% first round accuracy. That is lethal. That's powerful on the battlefield. Your support and power and prayers are more powerful. If you've ever heard, some of you have heard this, that fast mover screaming in, that aircraft screaming in on the bad guys, and if you're on a hill trying to vector them in and call them in, if you're knocked down, it will knock you off your feet. They come in at treetop level, and those guys are like piranha. They're looking for the bad guys. They're looking to put steel on target and suppress the enemy and save lives and or evacuate people. It's more powerful than that. It's more powerful than these aircraft carriers that we deploy that bring more punch to the party, more power in the fight than most nations possess. Your prayers and your support are more powerful than that. And today there are young men and women all over the world who are wiping down their weapon one last time, making sure the action's well oiled. They're topping off their magazine, they're topping off their canteens, they're loading up about 45 to 50 pounds a year to go out on another patrol. They've already been on 100. They'll do another 100 before they get to rotate out and come home to their loved ones. But they're counting on your prayers and your support. I cannot tell you how important it is. So people ask me, what can I do? How can I play a role? Be the biggest difference maker with your support and your prayers. It is critical. And it's what continues to keep our nation great and continues to keep us protected. My greatest fear is that God ever takes his hand of protection off this country. I don't want to be around to see that. I do not want to be here in that day if that ever happens. And God forbid that it ever happen. But your prayers make the difference. So I just thank you. I thank these veterans that we've had the honor to recognize this morning. Your service. I just revered the Vietnam veterans. I tried to join the Marine Corps when I was a 17-year-old in my senior year in high school, 1970. And the morning I was supposed to go, I went in, papers were all laying on the breakfast table. Breakfast table was the gathering place, and they weren't signed. And I looked at my mom and dad, who are the heroes of my life. My dad was a World War II veteran and was wounded in Italy. He became a drill instructor after that once he mended. But they wouldn't, and I asked them, I said, we've got to sign this, I've got to go get sworn in today, and then when I graduate, I'm gone. Delayed enlistment program. And they said, no, we got other plans for you, what have you. And I thought, oh no. So I, being begrudging but obedient son, I found myself in college a few months later after graduating high school, and I looked and saw some Marines in the foyer, dressed like this gentleman back here. And I looked and I saw that uniform and I thought, well, I've got to go say hello to those guys. We're sitting in the student union, it's kind of public place, so lots of students in there. So I popped up and walked over and said, I almost joined the Marine Corps. And they said, well, why didn't you? I said, well, I was only 17 and I couldn't get a signature from my parents and whatever. And they said, well, how old are you now? Well, I said, just turned 18 last month. So in 30 minutes, I'm walking away with a stack of papers, and a week later, I'm swearing in to get my physical. And so, 31 years, I do every day of it again, even the not so good parts. But it was serving with brothers and sisters from all services around the world, creating a bond that just can't be compared. I want to kind of wrap up and see if anybody has any questions or any discussion or anything. I told Bobby I like doing that. That's kind of my favorite. If we got a few minutes, if anybody has a question or something, or what's going on in the world today, I'm kind of in the middle of the global war on terrorism thing, and just got back from Baghdad about 3 weeks ago or so. They're about to install a new prime minister, and went over for that. So, yes, sir.
I served with the 1st Marines and 1st Marine Air Wing. To name Vietnam, right now as I speak, China has moved in 3 different locations.
Yes.
North, middle, south. They're going to take over Vietnam.
Yeah, China is proven to be a very patient, very careful aggressor in that region. They believe that the entire South China Sea belongs to them. Taiwan belongs to them. They're trying to reclaim it all.
I'm a retired Army colonel. I have 34 good years. Marine first. Made me a good chaplain in the Army.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. That's
243rd today.
But they still send me stuff.
Yeah.
I said, look, I'm retired, it's 05. If you're a colonel, you're breathing, you can walk, we still send you stuff. If you die, your wife notified us, we stop sending stuff. We got the best fighter in the world, the F-35, but when it did its great hero stuff, the next day, it crashed. We had a problem with that. You know about the China thing. And, this war, our top brass, what I know, they say in 2024, we're going to win a war with China.
There is a paper, there is a study that was pulled out 15 years ago that was a 30-year plan by Communist China to defeat the United States.
Right.
And they had an interesting graph in it. It was sort of and it had a crossing point where their moves would intersect that point where they would literally have control of the U.S. So, you know, when people say pray for our administration, pray for our, I tell you, y'all, we got to, because if you look back on our history, we've always had to fight for our freedom. We've always had to fight to free people and preserve freedom around the world, right? A huge cause. Every single person here has got someone in their family chain that has made huge sacrifice, maybe the ultimate sacrifice, to do that, to preserve peace in the world or to defend this nation. So again, when I'm saying prayer and support, I can't emphasize it enough. It is the most important thing to pray for this president or any president that we have and his administration and our military leaders. In this case, Jim Mattis, who is a really, really tough Secretary of Defense. I'm telling you, he goes and pounds the table with the Chinese. He doesn't take any guff off of them. And so they're kind of holding their hands, their cards close to the vest these days.
Right.
So we still have tremendous control of the seas with 11 aircraft carrier groups and the best fighters in the world, the best soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines in the world. So, yes, sir.
Once again, what branch of the service did you serve?
Marine Corps.
Marine Corps?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Next question, and the last question is, do you think our country today is moving in the right direction or maybe in the wrong direction?
I fear that part of our country is moving in the wrong direction. Much of it's moving in the right direction. But let me qualify something because, so I just left Iraq via Somalia coming in weeks ago. And you guys have been deployed, anybody that's been over visiting third world countries, you know this is the best country in the world.
Oh, yeah.
It is so exceedingly blessed. It's just amazingly blessed. Amen. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, you know, again, prayer and support. Prayer and support. I think we keep it headed in the right direction, and we do it from our knees. And you know, it's never over. It's never over. It's a daily thing. Sometimes we think, whew, okay, had a good prayer session this morning. Got an easy week now ahead. Oh no. I mean, we have to be vigilant. We have to be vigilant. Good question. Yes, sir.
We don't have enough people. That's a major problem today. And branch of service, they're short. And cyberspace is a big, big thing. You know, Air Force wanted on it. Would you guess as a Marine who's put more money in cyberspace training for the troops?
Yeah, I don't know.
Marines.
Marine has?
Marine has.
Well, I tell you, the Marine Corps usually gets accused of just being concerned about the newest bayonet. You know, we just want a little longer, a little sharper, a little more durable bayonet. That's, you know, we don't, technology, all that. But we are very concerned and very engaged in cyberspace and the new space command. And I'll tip it. So when you get home, if you think of it, Google and look up rods from God. It's a new weapon. It looks like a telephone pole. It's made out of a depleted type uranium that when it's non-nuclear, there's no waste, there's no toxic feature to it. But when that thing fires from a satellite to the Earth, it has the kinetic energy of a nuclear weapon. It can wipe out an entire city. Non-nuclear weapon. But there is no, you know, there's no fallout, there's no aftermath other than just destruction. So it can take, it can't go deep enough in the ground to escape the rod from God. So new weapon, just fun one to think about. Google.
Who has that? Who has that?
We do. We do. We're the only ones that have that technology. And the ability to accurately deliver it, which is the big thing. Yes, ma'am.
Can you recommend publications or something that would keep us up to date, that are out, magazines, whatever, a certain one that you enjoy that keeps you up to date information to know more about what is happening today?
You know, I would look carefully for books on certain topics. Economic Review is a great magazine, very conservative, and it looks at everything from global politics to who's in power, who's threatened, what's going on in Venezuela, what's going on in Cuba, It really has an in-depth. There's also a website. I'm going to draw a blank here. I think what it is, I'll probably have to tell Bobby about it, so he
Yeah,
can.
sure, I use that.
It comes out of a guy in Austin, and the company's headquartered in Austin, but they're one of the foremost worldwide intelligence services. It's private, but the U.S. military subscribes to it, State Department subscribes to it, everybody's a subscriber. Stratford, yes. It's George. I know George. I don't know why I can't think his last name, but he's a brilliant guy. George Bush Sr. brought him in as sort of his right-hand advisor. And Stratfor, if you Google Stratfor, S-T-R-A-T-F-O-R, they kick out an intel briefing every single day. And it's nice because you can go to any part of the world that you want to check out. If you're looking at traveling to Africa on a ministry trip or something, a mission trip, you can go in there and look up and see what's going on in Uganda. You can see what the civil war in the Congo is going like. You can find out, any part of the world. It's pretty cool. They're very good. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Colonel, sometimes I think our country's confused, and we don't stand for the flag and kneel for prayer.
Yeah.
The way I see it, and some of our country's confused on where you stand for the flag. I respect you so much. I was in the military for a while, and that's not the word that you, as you mentioned long ago. If you've been there, the lump comes up in you when you sing those songs, and that flag passes by in parade, or wherever you may be. It's so important to our country that you do respect that flag, because it means a lot, especially to the veterans who spend time honoring and protecting the flag.
Well, it's one of the questions asked earlier is that one of the dangers that we have as a nation is we have a lot of people that are horrendously spoiled. So spoiled. They don't credit anyone or anything or everything that they take for granted. And that's one of our biggest dangers. It's one of our biggest risks. So we do have, freedom is not free, and so we have, and it's nowhere in the world is it free. But every single person in here has a loved one somewhere up the family chain, probably that's paid the ultimate sacrifice or shed blood. And so we're all invested in this, in peace worldwide. We're going to have bad guys and aggressors, places like Russia or China. We're going to have bad guys and the little revolutions and civil wars that pop up like in the Congo or wherever. There's always somebody that wants to take everything that everybody else has got. So, again, I think the best weapon we got that we can use every single day is hit our knees. Hit our knees. And never, you tell a veteran, thank you for your service. You catch them in the airport or in a mall or something, you see them in uniform or you see them with a jacket on or a cap on or something. 9 times out of 10, what you get is kind of a sudden look, or maybe a look of startlement or embarrassment, maybe a little bit. But don't let that stand in the way. Tell that person and the next one and the next one. Just don't miss one. Because it means so much to them. And it literally reinvigorates their sacrifice. And so they're stronger for it. We're stronger for it. So don't ever hesitate to do that. Don't forget to take the few seconds. Yes, sir.
I'd like to add one more weapon
Yes.
that we have. And it won't hurt you. Y'all heard of pen pals back in World War II and all this, correspond with a veteran, and stuff through the churches and stuff like that. Today you have a real weapon in your hand. It's called email, the internet. My son, when he was in Iraq the last time, 2 times, I was able to converse with him. He couldn't come back to me that day, but maybe 2 or 3 days later, he would get my email, and then he would come back to me, and we were able to stay in touch, And you can, if you know somebody has a veteran serving somewhere, get their email address. Ask them to send you other email addresses. Send them just a quick note. Say, hey, we got your back home here, and thank you for your service, you know, and let them know that you care. And that would mean so much to them. And it don't cost you anything, just takes a few minutes of time. But I think that they would really appreciate that, and coming from a wider base, not just family. So
That technology is wonderful. And again, so you guys don't remember the snail mail days, some of us do. But I remember being deployed and I didn't get any mail for days and days, weeks and weeks and weeks, months and months. A few things to trickle through, and I thought, nobody knows I'm over here. You know, and then there's a story, we was charged on them to Kuwait, you know, to drive the Iraqis out of there, what have you. We rushed back home after the ceasefire, and I remember I was in the headquarters, and the guy came through dragging 2 big yellow bags, and I heard him going around and asking, has anyone seen Major Poole? Is there a Major Poole here? And I said, well, that's me. He said, well, we're getting ready to ship all this back to the States, but if you want it, you can have it. And it was all boxes and mail, letters and what have you, gathered up for 7 months.
that's like, when I was in Alaska, way up on the North Slope, the weather, our Wien Airlines could not get in with the mail. Even our military supply planes couldn't get in and out. You'd be there 2 and 3 weeks, not one letter. We didn't have the computers, the PCs, the laptops and stuff back in those days. Had we had them, we could have cared less whether Wien Airlines flew or not. You know, the internet was working, you know, email goes anywhere. So we use it.
Your support, your president. So Edmund Burke, last parting shot is Edmund Burke said back during the Revolution that the only way for evil to prevail is for good men and women to do nothing. So it's on us. Thank you all for having me.
He will be available for a while if you'd like to visit with him. I tell you what, if someone that has experience at virtually every level of the government, from the lowest ranks to the top, this gentleman has, and he is a very good, I've enjoyed visiting with him 2 or 3 times someplace. Thank you again for coming. Larry, would you like to come forward? Or are you going to do back there? Don't sit right there. We will be closing our ceremony, and if you would like, we'd love to have you guys come over to the museum just right across the street. But everyone, please stand.